Susan, count to 3 and start. Thank you.
My name is Susan Pinchon, and I'm here today with John Brakey of Audit Elections USA. Today, we are exposing a different kind of election fraud. The person who uncovered the fraud is here with us, Benny Smith, the nationally known election commissioner from Shelby County, Tennessee. Shelby County is the largest county in Tennessee and the state's largest Democratic county. The capital of Shelby County is Memphis, a majority Black city where Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated. The city and the county have a history of systemic racism, civil rights violations, and election problems that have suppressed the Black vote. The county has been called one of the hardest places to vote in America, and there have been approximately 50 lawsuits in the past 15 years over election irregularities. And the problems continue. Our guest, Benny Smith, recently discovered that the Shelby County Administrator of Elections, Linda Phillips, manipulated the bids for the county's new multi-million-dollar voting system to favor the voting system offered by Election Systems and Software, commonly referred to as ES&S. Phillips also altered the bids by millions of dollars to make hand-marked paper ballot systems appear more expensive than the bids actually submitted by the vendors. For example, the bid submitted by competitor Hart InterCivic for a hand-marked paper ballot voting system was $2.6 million. Phillips presented it to the Election Commission as a bid for $5.3 million instead of the actual $2.6 million, a false increase of $2.7 million. And she did this to make ballot marking device voting systems appear more favorable by comparison. How did Phillips get away with changing the bids so drastically without anyone finding out? She presented the altered bids in executive session behind closed doors and made the election commissioners sign a non-disclosure agreement. Election commissioners thought they were looking at the actual bid numbers presented by 3 vendors, ES&S, Hart InterCivic, and Dominion Voting Systems, but they actually only saw Phillips' manipulated numbers. Based on Phillips' misrepresentation of the bid numbers, the Election Commission recommended contracting with ES&S for a ballot marking device system to serve as the voting equipment for Shelby County. Linda Phillips used the secretive bid process in Shelby County to try to hide her misdeeds, but Benny Smith is here to go through the actual bids and compare them to Linda Phillips' altered numbers. Welcome, Benny.
Hi, Benny. Can you walk me through these numbers? Because they're pretty interesting from the review that I've looked at already.
All right. Can you see my screen?
I certainly can. Thank you.
Okay. So the bid that I'm going to look at now is ES&S. This is the ballot marking device solution. This column here that I'm highlighting, where I got highlighted, these are the costs, right? This is ES&S, and these are the costs that would be in a FOIA request. These are the bid sheets that at the closing of the bid process, these are the quantities that they submitted, and these are the costs associated with those quantities. And that total of that bid was $3.9 million. The next comparison column is Phillips. That's our administrator of elections. So these are what she presented to the commissioners to make our decision on. We were debating costs, but not debating costs, but we were evaluating costs because we had to do everything else in public. But we had to, disseminate this information or synthesize this information. So this column is going to be what I saw when we were looking at, we weren't deliberating, but we were looking at the cost to evaluate. And this column here is the net change in the quantities. So the most important thing to get, from my understanding, and there's a reason why I asked the question of the purchasing department, was can a body who is not in charge of purchasing modify the quantities and order more or less quantities based on a bid once the vendor has submitted a solution, because if that's what the purpose of the RFP process is, to figure out what your ask is so that the vendor can provide a solution for you. So we had the model DS200 precinct scanner. I'm just going to give you an example of one row and explain what it's saying and what it means. So a precinct counter this unit costs $5,825. ES&S said, to service your county elections, you need 200 of these. We have 166 precincts. So there's one scanner in each precinct, and it looks like there are about 34 spares inside of it. So the bid, I probably asked for them to include some spares for training or something like that. That cost is $1.1 million. ES&S said, I can service your county using my equipment for $1.1 million, and you need 200 of these to do it. Our administrator changed those quantities to add some additional quantities, which brought the total to $1.4 million. And this variance shows that she decided that we needed 42 more DS200s, which was an increase of $244,000. So every line going forward is the change between what the vendor said we need for our solution and what our administrator determined was the ultimate need. This is in her mind because I wasn't part of the purchasing process, so this is obviously in her mind. So we go down to the bottom. This is where the evaluations start to change, and our commissioner said that they were accessories. But I got a problem with that, because like these are carts and stands, right? So the $600,000 here is saying that the voting booths, the BMDs that we're gonna buy, we gotta have something to sit them on, right? So we're not gonna sit in Indian style and vote. So, right, you would think that this would be in the base bid. Nonetheless, it's not included in what wasn't submitted in the base bid for ES&S. So that's already $600,000. So if you do $600,000 and 244, we already have $1 million in increases. But the significant thing for me was I tried to figure out where these figures came from, because they were different than what the vendor had submitted. And I want to hone in on the implementation and shipping, because implementation and shipping, the number that I was given was $349,375. Now, when I tried to marry that up to what was submitted in the bid, I can show my work here because this is an Excel document. ES&S said shipping and handling was $13,500. Can you see my mouse?
Yeah, I certainly can. Good job.
Equipment installation was $142. On-site support was $28. Implementation services was $47. Now, if I let you see what that number is, that's only $231,000.
Right.
So my question is, where's the other $118,000? So that's immediately a calculation that I cannot. I don't know what that money is. I don't know where that money came from. I don't know where it's going. It's definitely not going to implementation and shipping if you look at the bid. So unless implementation and shipping is now, I don't know. I don't know what that is, because if everything is accessories or spares, as they're saying, then you definitely don't have new shipping costs, right? Or the shipping cost is low anyway. So you don't end up with more equipment installation or implementation and services because they're extras, right? So I cannot quantify. Say again?
Is the carts and stands, aren't they included with the $5,800 price that you get a box to put the thing on?
I have no idea.
I'm not sure. I thought that was the complete unit.
You got me, John.
Because I'm looking now at the $600,000 for, the cart and the stand. That's where the DS200 sits on top of. Correct me if I'm wrong, right?
That's my understanding of it too, John.
Yeah, and because I think that they're included. That's amazing. Because why didn't they say that you need it? Okay.
Yeah, right. Why is that not in the base bid? I don't get it.
In the base bid. My God.
So that's an additional expense where I would want to know. That's definitely not an accessory. I'm not going to vote in Indian style, right? I'm not going to vote with my legs crossed. So, or sitting on the floor. This one I can see as an additional memory devices. I think there's a lot of memory devices, but I can see that as an accessory, right?
I do too.
So there's a trade-in allowance of $282,000, and then they offer $1 million discount, and that is quantified by me making sure that there's no this one here plus this one here is going to equal 1,285. So I'm missing about $15,000. I don't know how that number is what it is. So I have some questions there. So I just plugged the amount that I couldn't quantify up here as something that I can't figure out what the cost is. But at the end, there was $3.9 million submitted, and that total was increased by $1 million. For some operational expenses, most look like capital expenses to me. That's the reason why I want purchasing to clarify for me. And that is a base bid. Well, there's a bid out the door price of $5 million, right? So now I want to go to the hand-marked paper ballot solution. This is still ES&S, but I think the significance for me rings a little bit true. Now everybody
Go.
All right, so now we're looking at ES&S. It's a hand-marked paper ballot solution. And here's where the significance rises to my level of attention, right? So everybody knows, John, that I'm a hand-marked paper ballots person. Everybody knows that I travel the country talking about machines and their vulnerabilities, their ability to be hacked. And I have been a fierce advocate for the hand-marked paper ballots solution. And what is alarming to me is the process that I had to go through not to get any cost information, and what I see is happening in this particular series of adjustments. They are definitely disturbing to me, and I'll highlight why. Okay, so the same thing happens with this line, the model DS200. There are 42 editions. But with the hand-marked paper ballot solution, there are 200 quantities that ES&S says you need for the express remote ballot marking device. Tennessee law says you have to have one per precinct. We have 166 precincts, and it looks like we have 34 spares. But that number is doubled, John. Yes. And it wouldn't be as significant until you realize that you're putting almost $1 million on the board.
Yes.
Right? So why do we need two? If ES&S says you only need 200, right? If ES&S says you only need 200, how in God's name can I double that figure? Right? Am I bidding or ES&S bidding? Right? Like, whose bid is this? Right? So this rises to my level of attention to say, what to ask? What do we need with 200 extra units? And now when you get here, I'm already $1 million over and above what ES&S has said they can do for my county. Right, and then you say, well, I because I ordered extra marking devices, the tote bins that the ES&S said, well, you only need 200. For some reason, we have now 918 tote bins. I suspect it's something, from my recollection, it's something to do with early voting. But you gotta, that's what the bid process is for. That's, you would say what your solution is, and they have to figure out how to calculate it. I don't understand how we can do that and then add it on the back end. So again, I'm over $1 million now, right? I'm clear though, I'm $1,083,000. So I'm gonna skip down and go to this line right here, because this is $1 million on one line. So that says to me either ES&S did not give me a complete solution, and this is definitely not an accessory.
So this is the ballot on demand system?
Yeah.
That's what she's done there.
Right.
And she's done that, and everything she's done here, I've seen in other states, Benny, is that she is inflating the cost of hand-marked paper ballots to justify spending all this additional money. We know that what Knoxville bought a system, I think they spent somewhere around $4.50 per voter. And we know that pricing, the estimates I did 4 or 5 months ago showed that she was trying to spend $12 to $14 per, and she's trying to make paper ballot look more expensive. And this is just an incredible part of the scam that she's putting out, because you can obviously see from these numbers what she's doing.
I definitely, my flag went up when I saw this, mainly because these are really large figures, right? This, I just stopped at the million here, and I was like, look, purchasing's got to answer this, right? I don't, we are not a funding body. We are literally voting on a solution. There should be a purchasing process in place, and the reason for the people who are listening, because my background is in finance. The reason why you have a purchasing department is to make sure you get the best price with the right quantities at the right time. And a person coming in at the lowest bid can't be allowed to underbid the project and then get it all back in additions, right? So purchasing exists to catch things like that. And when I saw this number here, that's what rose to my level to say, well, this is obviously beyond my scope of authority. Let's let purchasing look at this, because it could be some legitimate reason why that's allowed. I haven't seen anything that allows it, but nonetheless I want to know. But to your point, if I go down here and I just look at what ES&S said we need versus what she says we need, that's the part that really rattles me. That's the part, because and again, John, this is,
she increased it $3 million.
Right, that's triple, right? How can ES&S?
And this lines up with my estimate. Okay, I want you to know, even though I had 850s, because I'm a background as an estimator, I've worked in 18 states, and I've been chasing ballot on demand all across this country because it's a bad system that is replacing an ink pen with a $4,000 machine. Okay?
Oh, we got some thousands in here. We got some millions in here. So how can, my question is, how is it that ES&S thinks that we only need to give them $1.5 million, and they're the bidder, right? They're the knower of the solution. They're the provider of the solution. How can we triple that, right? How can we add that number on top of itself 2 more times before we can get to a solution? So now if you look at this $4.8 million, and $4.8 million wasn't the number that was submitted to us, but when you actually add it up, that's what it came up to. So if you go back to ES&S in comparison to ES&S, and you have to compare as a commissioner, right? I'm sitting commissioner.
Yes.
And if go back and look at all of our administrators' interviews, she's saying there's virtually no cost difference. The ballot marking device costs the same amount of money as the hand-marked paper ballot solution. If you look at this number here, 5 million, and you look at this number, 4.8 million, what's a couple of $100,000 among commissioners, right? It makes this look very unattractive, because it makes you feel like you got to go and spend $3 extra million to make a solution work. When that is just not the case. That is about as big a falsehood as there can be. Nonetheless, if it's allowed, then purchasing needs to make that decision, because me as a sitting commissioner, I need to provide the oversight to make sure that if this is not allowed, that I at least raise the alarm bells to say that this does not look right, and this does not look right to me. My background is finance. You can't do this in any other financial department. You gotta have requisitions. You gotta have signatures. You gotta have all kind of stuff, signing authority, and that just rises to the level. I just need clarification from the purchasing department on it, and that's the reason why I asked for it. Do you have a question? I'm gonna go to the next.
All right, let's go to the next one. This is just incredible. I understand it because this is what I do, is looking at this across the country. Let's keep going on. This is just incredible.
So Hart, they had a lot of information in their bid. It really looked like a complete bid to me. But then there was still another $1 million added to the bid that I just can't quantify. And I'll just show you some of the things that I saw, right? So if you compare the booths to ES&S, this is a BMD versus BMD, right? If you look at the ballot marking device versus ES&S's ballot marking device, she had to buy stands, which if you add these two numbers together, I'm at 4.5 million now with the stands added in, right? You follow?
Right.
But Hart had the stands in there.
Right. They're
And
included.
they were 5 million, including the stands.
Right. On a BMD device.
So a low bid doesn't mean anything if I'm not getting a solution. But not only did they give me that, they gave me controllers for handicap accessible. They gave me headphones included in the price, very accessible booths with these handicap booths. So this is another $800,000, where if you take this $800,000, this solution is actually lower when you consider what you're getting.
Yes.
Because that's $1 million that basically you're gonna get penalized for actually taking care of the handicap accessible, right? So the evaluation of these bids did not make what were being offered in comparison to the price of what they were. And then there was another question that I had about this one. It's because there's $150,000 in voters with kits for disabilities. But when I look at that, I'm like, these are the kits for voters with disabilities, right? If you look at the documentation from Hart, so it just does not make sense to me. These are the changes, right? She took these out, added these in, and it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. But all in all, 970 adds to the total, where that being 5.1 and 6 million, which if you took all of that out, it's still a really reasonable, robust solution with 2 million in discounts, and they almost threw the house in. So this one is this is a ballot marking device solution. I actually wouldn't want this solution because I'm a hand-marked paper ballot guy. But this looks like when you compare them, that's a solid solution. It didn't look like anything was left out that I would have to knock against a base bid. Now, Hart did a hand-marked paper ballot solution, right? Right away, man. Like here it is again, right? Here it is again. They said you need 183 of them, right? 166
They know.
precincts.
These are pros. They know what you need.
Yeah,
they know
166
the
precincts.
They look at things.
And I legit add $1 million. I just don't get it. Why? I don't know what that's for. What is $1 million for? Right? And then they still throwing in the accessible stuff through the printers in on this one, right? They're giving us the kitchen sink, right? They're giving us the house, right? Yeah. And they're doing all this for $2.5 million. That is a robust and solid solution. $600,000 in discounts. But you know, the Verity print, there's 45 new ones. I don't know what for, 35 new scanners. This is not happening in the same ratio. So, and then there at the bottom of that, you got another $1 million in additions. But the voting booths, here, voting booths, $330,000, right? $330,000 in voting booths, right? Why? Here are the voting booths right here. Well, I'll take that back.
Included.
The voting booths are not in this one.
Oh,
and the reason why there are no voting booths in here is because it's a hand-marked paper ballot solution. You know what I mean? But, you know, again, adding the voting booths, I can see that could be, I don't see why you ordered them from Hart. So I don't know if those are Hart or if they are just like the pavilion where people can go. So I want to be careful. I don't want to add, you know, if this is not a capital expense, I want to be careful not to say that this is not reasonable. I don't know. That's why I want clarification from purchasing, because if they did the requisitions, in purchasing, there would be change orders. If they did that, you can know why this, well, you have to explain why this is what it is. But again, I don't see how you double the bid it's a double bid, right? You literally double the bid.
Yeah.
To make it more 5.3 for a hand-marked paper ballot solution in comparison to 6 million hand-marked paper ballot solution in comparison to 4.8 million, which is now making ES&S look really attractive in comparison to 5 million. So it's saying that the paper ballot solution for Hart is more expensive than the BMD solution of ES&S, and that just doesn't pass muster. That just doesn't pass. So again, I digress. I don't. I'm really careful to say that this is an objective view at this. I'm not making any decisions based on it. These are just the numbers. You know, the numbers do not lie, and this is what the numbers are saying, right? So Dominion, which was actually the lowest bidder, based on everything that I looked at, I don't think it was a more complete solution, but they were the lowest bidder, because if you look at 3.39 is what they submitted. ES&S was 3.99, and then I think they had servers in their bid, and they were not included in the base bid. Right? You know, there's a little split in the hairs. But anyway, this is what they offered.
And this is
right?
the BMD using the Dominion ICX.
Yep, the Dominion BMD.
It's used in Georgia, and there's an interesting court case going on. I'll provide a link in the description below.
That is a wild one for sure.
It is.
So this is the same thing that's happening with Dominion. It's not nearly as drastic as the Hart and the ES&S changes were. Nonetheless, there are some changes here where we ordered 3,400 smart cards, and I think the total was 1.3 million. So this does add up. Transport cases, carts and stands. I don't know why we need carts and stands again. I'd have to go back and look at their tech manuals to see if the stands actually came in the price of the 90. Let me look for the BMD. What's the BMD device? The BMD, right? I don't know if that 3,500 includes the stand, because it says image cast kit. So that would make me think that it comes with a stand, but I don't know. I don't know exactly. Nonetheless,
I'll look that up. I have all their manuals, and I also collect estimates from all across the country.
Right, but I literally had an hour to look at the one row of costs. Right, I didn't have this row. I had an hour to look at this row of costs, and because I did the signed a non-disclosure and saw that the costs were not in there, neither were the table of contents, by the way. And I got it for purchasing. I stayed up from like 8 to 4 in the morning going over these costs. So that's why I was aware that they were, reasonably drastic different changes. But this went from 3.9 million to 5.3 million with a 3 million in additions. Again, some of these are probably operational expenses, but they're not accessories. It's not a full accessory in additions. And again, why I said purchasing needs to look at it. So that's Dominion. Goes from 3.9 to 5.3 million. And the last one is Dominion's hand-marked paper ballot solution. And again, we run off, the additions and the subtractions, right? You see a bunch of additions and subtractions where it just makes you say, why, if they said you need 240, and she said in our presentation that she normalized the quantities, and that really, really rattled me, because I'm like, you can't normalize. You don't know what my technology does. You don't need 400 of everybody's, right? And it only happened in the hand-marked paper ballot solution. So everybody who had a hand-marked paper ballot solution, that particular line was changed to 400, which was doubling what the vendor said that they needed, which also gives me a pause to say, well, why would the vendor not know that they need to add an extra $560,000 in the bid? Are you saying that the bid was underbid, or we didn't go through the purchasing process? Because that's what you have that's what you have an RFP for, so you can say what all of these things are, right?
And if I could just jump in there, is that the bidder would know that there was 166 precincts. They would also know the voter population, and you divide that into it, and how many voters per digital scanner at a precinct, okay?
Right, that would be on us to give that information.
Yeah, close to 2,500 voters per machine.
So at any rate, they submitted a bid of 1.8 million. Again, this is lower than Hart and not lower than ES&S. But when you factor in what you get in comparison to what it is, that's where I thought my real exercise as a commissioner was supposed to be, to see what did we get for the cost, right? And it looks like $1.4 million added to this, basically is almost doubling the bid.
Well,
so
look
that's
at the
it.
cart stands. Go back down the cart stands, okay?
Cart stands.
I'm pretty sure on a Dominion system, and I'll verify, I'll have to go, but they come with it, Okay, when you spend that kind of money on the above, that's an accessory that comes with it. Okay?
Absolutely. I'm not going to sell you a voting. I'm not going to sell you a bike without the kickstand.
Right.
Yeah, that's really drawn. I just wanted to say that because people may think that I'm preferred for a specific vendor. I don't care who it is, as long as it's the right thing for the public that's going to make it easier for them to vote. As basic systems theory, if you can verify the input, then you can predict the output, or you can at least verify the output is correct and a true real result because you have a true input. And a hand-marked paper ballot is only going to give you that true input.
Can you, for being able, we go back a number of years now. It's very impressive what we've, after all these months, finally going through those 1,200 pages of the the 3 estimates, which, like I said, are going to be connected to this document, to this video. And also how, you know, you, me, Susan, and a lot of other people who are really concerned about democracy in Tennessee. And you know, I'm grateful that you got me to come in, because at first I did not want to come into Tennessee.
I'm really glad you came, John.
Because
I think I was begging. Was I begging?
Many years. Texas and Tennessee are not my 2 favorite states when it comes to democracy issues, only because Jim March was there in 2007. I was working with him then, and I was inside to know how they were manipulating things back in 2007. I've been tracking Shelby County ever since then, when Susan and Bev Harris went in there, okay, and then with Judge Joe Brown, and then that whole episode, and then I finally met you. That's about 5 years ago, and I said to myself, you know, it's not a swing state, and it's just maybe a little too corrupt to waste my time in, but I do know meeting you and what we're trying to do there. Memphis, Tennessee is the key of getting Tennessee to be straight up, where we can have elections there that are transparent, trackable, and publicly verified. So I'm grateful to work with you, Benny. You are the future of our movement. I'm 66. You're still a young guy. And wow, thank you.
All right.